Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Transit Tangents. We are obviously on the go right now.
Out in the field.
Out in the field, we're getting ready to go meet our friend Kelsey. Chris just got to ride an e-bike for real for like kind of the first time right now.
I'm being converted to the cult of the e-bike.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's an easy thing to convert people to do, so if you haven't tried it yet, by the end of this episode, you're going to want an e-bike.
And from my understanding, Kelsey is a strong disciple of the cult of e-bike.
She 100% is. Yeah, we're going to actually meet her in just a second right now. But look at that. She's actually here. And we're actually recording. This was not scripted.
That was really good timing.
So we clearly found Kelsey. Thanks again for doing this. That was totally not scripted. That she started riding up as we were recording the intro there.
Perfect cinematic timing.
Yes, yeah. We're gonna go for a bike ride basically right now. And Kelsey, you want to let people know what you're on your way to go do, and we'll actually come hang out with you for a little bit if that's okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, what do you have going on?
So I'm one of the main organizers for Rethink 35. And today we're setting up at Edward Rendon Park, which is along the hike and bike trail. And we're talking to people about the park closures, the trail detours that TxDOT wants to do as part of the I-35 expansion, if they get away with it, because we're suing them.
Now that we had found Kelsey, we all got on our bikes and started pedaling towards the event. Along the way, we made a nice pit stop at a spot along the hike and bike trail to first have a conversation with Kelsey about how she got so involved in urbanism and transit activism here in Austin. Yes, cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Some nice Celsius from HEB.
Mm-hmm.
Our first sponsor. No, just kidding.
We're gonna get sued one day because you're claiming everyone's our sponsor.
Yes.
Yeah, my name's Kelsey Huse. I've lived in Austin for 5 years. Before this, I lived in Philly for 3 years, and that's where I got introduced to biking in a city environment, taking public transit, and my world just opened up, and I had so much fun. And in Philly is when I got on Twitter. I got on Twitter at first to document my journey into tech, and I was doing a coding boot camp. But then eventually I just started talking about public transit. And earlier this year, I started documenting my experiences here in Austin on TikTok. So what you probably saw was the Barton Skyway bike lane.
Yes.
Which is off of South Lamar, which is very close to where I live. And it opened up a new route for me to get to Barton Springs, the incredible pool that we have here. And I heard that it was at risk of being taken out because the neighbors started a petition to remove it. And as someone who only took the bus and biked everywhere, I was so fed up. I made a TikTok really quickly to oppose it. And then we ended up having 6 times the amount of signatures as them in the end, I think. Mm-hmm. And we saved the bike lane. And ever since that, I've just been documenting random things around Austin that caused me pain. Mm-hmm. And
I love to hear that you launched a campaign to save a bike lane. You don't hear that a lot in Austin. Usually it's quite the opposite. Like, we need this bike lane now. Mm-hmm. So it actually really surprised me to hear that there was a movement to remove it. Well,
to be fair, you definitely spend less time on Austin urbanist Twitter.
True.
There are a lot of people in Austin who are very against bike lanes, like they post ridiculous things being like, look at all the empty buses everywhere that nobody's riding, and they've never been on a bus before, and come to find out that like when you do ride the bus, they're actually really busy a lot of the times. There's actually some major forces at play who are against these sorts of things. But
fair.
The origin story of me making the anti-petition actually is because when the Slaughter Lane bike lane was put in, the media covered all of these people who drove their cars near it, who were hating it and hated that they would accidentally hit it because they weren't used to it, etc.
Right.
And they didn't interview a single cyclist who used it. And in my opinion, I thought this is lazy reporting and they can't ignore us and they're not going to ignore us again. And so I did get on, I think, 2 news channels from the Barton Skyway thing.
Nice. Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. So your experience in Austin now, you don't have a car, you've used, or you do have a car.
I do have a car. I think I've driven it maybe 15 miles this year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's there if you need it, but your relationship with the city has really been focused on public transit. And when did you get an e-bike?
I got an e-bike, I think it was in September. So shortly after I moved to North Central Austin. I heard about the REI e-bike discount plus the City of Austin energy rebate. So I think I paid a little under $1,000 for the e-bike. And since I got the e-bike, I've actually barely taken the bus anymore because I don't need to. It's just faster to ride everywhere.
Right. And we had coffee a couple of weeks ago at one point, and I asked you about this. I used to see you all the time posting taking Cap Metro to go here and go there and all this stuff. And correct me if I'm wrong, you had a regular bike, not an e-bike.
Correct.
And you would kind of do some bike and bus. And then I asked you, I was like, I don't see you ever talking about Cap Metro anymore. What has changed? So you I guess, can you talk me through how that transition has been and why, since you've gotten the e-bike, you're basically using that instead of transit in a lot of cases?
Two things have changed for me. So one, I moved from South Austin to North Austin, and North Austin is more of a grid system. It's way easier to bike up there. So I would take the bus in South Austin to get out of the Strode areas like South Lamar, so I could get to a bikeable area. And now I'm in a bikeable area to start. And then the e-bike is just a lot faster. So I can go up hills, no problem. I'm not exhausted. So one example is I have violin lessons once a week up in Georgian Acres, which for me is about 4 miles. And when I started going there, I would use my regular bike and I would be covered in sweat. I actually almost passed out one time when I arrived. She would be worried about me. And then I tried the bus, and it would take at least twice as long. Then I got my e-bike. I can get there in 20 minutes. I'm not out of breath. I have fun. It's amazing.
Yeah, nice. No, it's that's kind of for me too. I mean, so initially it was just me. I had the e-bike, my partner did not. So we would primarily use it. I work from home mostly, so it's not necessarily a commute thing for me, but I would use the bus to go out downtown, or if I'm going downtown in general and didn't want to deal with parking, or want to have a couple drinks and not want to worry about driving home. But since he's gotten the e-bike, we now even use the e-bikes for that. And last night is a perfect example. He got home from work. We went over to First Light, which is a cute little
I love that place.
bookshop / coffee shop that also sells beer and wine. And we went over and got a half carafe of wine and browsed the books a little bit, but we rode our bikes there. And then afterwards we were feeling kind of lazy about making dinner. And we rode over towards Pint House Pizza over there, did some pizzas, came home, and it was just we were just riding our bike around, didn't have to get in the car. And it was so nice. And I mean, he uses it to go to work every single day. Our car is basically, at this point, we do use it for grocery shopping. It's easier. If I need to get 1 or 2 things, sometimes I'll ride my bike up, but we use it for grocery shopping, and then if it's terrible weather or we're driving pretty far for something, we'll use it for that. But like yours, we definitely have more than 15 miles on ours probably this year, but it mostly sits in the parking lot of our apartment. Yeah.
And I'm so envious of that, because you have such a different relationship with your city when you're on a bike. I was thinking of that today when we were cycling through West Campus on the Rio Grande bike trail, and I've driven through that road. I've cycled it before on a regular bike. But you're just so much more engaged with the cityscape and with the environment when you're.
You're good.
Okay.
You're fine.
If you couldn't see that, there's a cute little dog that just peed right next to the bikes.
At least not on the bike. But you are so much more engaged, and I would love to have that engagement with the city more. Unfortunately, I work across town. I live in sort of Northwest Austin. I work by the airport.
Oh my gosh.
The bike commute's not really feasible.
No.
So I have to use a car for biking, but I also work from home some parts of the week. So if there's a chance to go grab lunch or go to the grocery store or whatever, that's when I think a bike would be really nice.
Yeah.
Problem in my neighborhood, as we talked about a couple times in the podcast, is the hills are just like this.
Yeah.
You have to really, really have strong legs, or you have to have an e-bike. So this episode's kind of convince Chris to join the e-bike.
Yes.
The e-bike cult.
Yeah. That's been our joke earlier on. It was an e-bike has changed my life basically.
Yeah.
And I think you probably would agree that it is such a game changer for so many reasons, because it fills the gap of there's a couple gaps it fills. In the summertime when it's really hot out and you need to go somewhere and not be disgusting when you arrive, you can rely a little bit heavier on the pedal assist or the throttle if yours has that. If you're somebody who is a little bit older and like wants to still ride their bike somewhere but doesn't have the energy to be able to do that. I think, you know, if my parents lived in a better area for it, my parents, when they came here, we rented some of the e-bikes, the bike shares, and they loved it. We rode all around on the hike and bike trail, all this stuff. So for older folks, I think it can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And then if you do want to get some exercise, keep your pedal assist low or off. And even if you're not pedaling as much as you would on a regular bike, you are still getting some exercise while you're out there doing it, and it's healthier. There's all sorts of, I could go on a whole bunch of different tangents about how many positive elements there are to it, but it makes things a lot easier. And the last point I want to make is that like it makes cities like Austin that aren't super dense everywhere a lot more achievable to bike. You know what I mean? Things are not like right next to each other here, unfortunately, everywhere. There are parts of town that are getting way more dense for sure, but the e-bike helps in a city like Austin where unfortunately things aren't right next to each other everywhere, and you can kind of like surmount that difference.
Yeah,
Agreed.
It makes the city a lot smaller when you have the e-bike.
Yeah.
How has your experience been cycling in Austin? Like, how do you rate Austin for that experience?
Well, living in South Austin, it was very poor.
Yeah.
So I would rate cycling in South Austin like a 2 out of 10. There's a few good bike lanes, but in general, it's very hilly. They haven't prioritized putting in crossings over the railroad and over the creeks down there. So there's generally only one way to get east to west within a mile of area. So it's very limiting. Biking in north central Austin, I think, has been wonderful. In downtown and east, all of the trails, all of the protected bike lanes. It's still not perfect because there's cars. So I would say 7 out of 10.
Right. Yeah,
Do you ever feel sort of in danger on Austin roads with vehicles around you? Because I hear that complaint a lot, like especially when the bike lanes sort of end, or you're on a shared road where it's like the bike lane is, you know, this wide, and then there's 4 lanes of traffic next to you without any type of flexi post or protected.
I definitely feel unsafe in those situations, and I generally move to the sidewalk. So I've figured out where I feel safe, and I stick to that. I'm definitely weary of trying new routes because I get anxious easily. So if I'm going to try a new route near somewhere that looks scary, I'll get a friend to show me first. That's how I got confident taking the Hancock Center I-35 crossing.
Gotcha.
Had a couple of friends show me it, but I didn't want to do it by myself to start.
And I think that's like a good tip too for like if you're someone who has a bike or an e-bike or wants to get into it, is like you don't want to go from point A to point B the same way you would in a car. Like 9 times out of 10, it is not going to be the best way to bike there.
You're not going to enjoy it.
No, it's definitely worth like looking, you know, it's not perfect, but like Austin, for example, the city has a website with like all of the bike maps, bike lanes and whatnot on it, and like by level of comfort. And it's not 100% accurate, I'll say, in a lot of cases. But it's a place to start. You can also, you know, like, okay, you want to try riding to your friend's house or something, like look on Google Maps, look at the street view, like see what your options might be, because just getting on your bike and going the same way you know how to get there in a car is probably going to be, number one, like maybe not even your fastest way, but also is very likely going to be dangerous because you're going to be on like a wide, scary road with cars moving really fast, when in reality there might be like a nice neighborhood street right alongside.
Exactly, one block over.
I guess that's what we experienced today. We were sort of around major roads, but we found a way to avoid those major roads, go through some beautiful neighborhoods, streets that felt very safe. A little bumpy at times, but streets that felt, you know, safe and comfortable to ride on. So you should, like you said, you have to find that route that you're comfortable with. That's a huge tip.
And the route we took today, I had no idea about, but Travis Stone is the one who introduced me to.
He got a shout out in our episode 4. I would like to meet up with Travis at some point. We have connected on Twitter now, so we'll have to do I wanted to cross I-35 with him somewhere together. I think that would be fun.
You got to do that.
I want to be respectful of your time because we probably should get going in a second here. One final question, I guess, like if there is another tip or something you could say to someone who might be like on the fence about getting into biking or e-biking, what would you tell someone who's kind of on the fence, who's like, I want to, be doing this sort of thing, but like maybe is nervous to do it in their city, or is like, waiting to pull the trigger? Is there something you might tell someone like that?
I would say try to get someone to help you, to guide you. So whether that's someone you follow on social media who's really into biking, like me, I would love it if someone reached out and said, hey, can you show me around this neighborhood or how to get groceries in my neighborhood or whatever. Or you can join a bike group. So there's a lot of bike rides that happen in the city, social rides, critical mass, etc. Just try it out. I'm sure you can rent an e-bike.
Yeah,
probably.
Even the bike share systems have e-bikes too.
Okay,
like they're not like as nice necessarily as the ones that we have, although something we didn't hit on, and maybe I'll talk about it afterwards here, is like affordability. Like if you're comparing it to the cost of a car, these are insane. And honestly, all three of these bikes that we have here were all basically $1,000 or less with whether it be through the rebate or just the price of the bike in general. If you are replacing a good chunk of your car trips with them, or like in my case, we got rid of one car and like we're saving tons of money as a result. So even on the affordability end, it's a big thing. So
also look at your city or your county may offer some type of discount. Like in Austin, we have the Austin Electric rebate that you can get for bikes, and there's participating dealers.
Right.
There's a couple of qualifications you have to hit. Getting it from a registered dealer, making sure that it's definitely an e-bike. Showing your receipt, but very easy things to meet.
Totally.
And then you go down to your bike shop, and you're
good to go.
Always happy to help you out.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, awesome, Kelsey. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
We'll finish our ride over to the Rethink 35 signature gathering, and kind of are you gathering signatures?
Yeah.
And we'll make sure that information on Rethink 35 is linked in this. I'm not exactly sure when this will be posted, so we'll make sure there's some relevant Rethink 35 information in the description.
Absolutely. So successful.
Cheersing, I guess now it's
successful trip.
Yeah. So we made it back from. We're almost back to my apartment at a little coffee shop in a nice bikeable part of town again. I guess what did you think of half day on the e-bike? What are your thoughts for your first experience?
I can't say that I'm a convert until I buy one. So I am e-bike curious.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. E-bike curious.
FYI, he did buy one 2 weeks after this episode.
What was that? We had a transit curious.
We had
episode.
transit curious. I am now e-bike curious.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing for me are the hills, and that's what I keep saying. And I think Austin has decent bikeable streets to get around, especially North Austin. We saw that today. We talked to people who believe that as well. It needs a lot of improvement, don't get me wrong.
Totally, yeah.
But for somebody like me, when I'm trying to get out of the hills and I just want to go and meet somebody on the weekend or something, like it would make total sense to have an e-bike.
Yeah.
Something I was thinking about though on our trip is like definitely not for, not that it's not for everybody. I guess it is kind of for everybody, but it's not feasible for everybody because e-bikes are still pretty expensive.
For the most part, I mentioned it a little bit in our conversation with Kelsey, and it kind of depends on where you're at with it, right? Like if you're in a 2-car household and you can use it to replace a car, it's actually like so affordable when you think about how much money you're gonna save. Again, if you've got a $600 a month car payment, car insurance, gas, registration, all this sort of stuff, you can spend $1,000 or less after a rebate if your city has a rebate like Austin's does. And I mean, you've made your money back in 3 months, basically, if you can use it.
If you're somebody who is transit dependent without a car, it could be a stretch.
Totally.
Which is why I wanted to go back and sort of reemphasize what you just actually mentioned was that rebate program. And you should look at your cities, and if you are interested, in an e-bike, you should look at your cities and see what kind of rebate programs there are, because that might make it affordable for you.
Right, and more of them are doing it. And in here, just for example, if you buy an e-bike that's could be $1 over $1,000, you get a $400 rebate. So that was the case for Kelsey and Jerry, who both have the same e-bike, as well as like 250 other people in Austin who took advantage of a sale at the exact right time. That e-bike basically that you've been riding all day costs someone $600
and changed their life
and changed their life. And sarcastically, but also really like Jerry commutes on that thing to work every single day. Kelsey doesn't take the bus basically at all anymore and uses her bike to go everywhere, and has driven her car 15 miles in the first month of the year. Like that's a huge benefit when your city is trying to get people out of cars and into other modes to try to relieve traffic in different parts of towns and to try to like solve mobility problems. So
agreed. So I think it was a big success today. I'm leaning on the side of potentially buying an e-bike. We'll see.
Yeah.
There might be a follow-up episode of me at the bike shop.
Trying them out.
Yeah.
Testing them out. Yeah.
But thank you to Jerry for letting me use his bike today. Thank you for setting everything up today and setting up the interview with Kelsey.
Totally. And I think there's a lot to talk about in future episodes too. We could get into so many different little pieces of nitty gritty as far as like bike infrastructure goes, but that would make this episode far too long. So stay tuned for future ones. If you have things that you think we should talk about regarding bikes in a future episode, whether it be the different types of bike infrastructure, whether it be enforcement of parking in bike lanes or people just being in bike lanes like we saw today, all of that sort of stuff, definitely let us know in the comments because we read all of them. One that we are addressing in this video, it might be a little bit out of order, so apologies if this has been a while, but at Ricken Cub, apologies for the misspelling there. He left this comment, or they left this comment on the our episode 2. He said, I enjoyed the discussion in video, but it's a little too drawn out and choppy, and I kept looking away. Could you shorten this video to maybe 20 minutes? I would rather hear the discussions in the video itself rather than cutting away to your home. Thanks for all the work you did.
We actually don't want to see my home. Just say it.
That's actually like good feedback, and I can tell that you enjoyed the episode. So thank you for watching and subscribing. I saw you did that, and we're totally taking that feedback in this video. You'll notice that we've just been out and on the trip the entire time. I might eat words there if we had to like insert something in the middle at one point, but we're totally taking that feedback and trying it out, especially on this episode.
Yeah, so thank you for that comment. We've also heard from people in person throughout the last couple weeks that have been listening, and we really appreciate their feedback as well. One that I wanted to call out is a friend of ours, Ray, who lives in Austin, had a lot of very positive things to say and learned something new. And I hope that you're also learning something new in the podcast. For instance, Ray didn't know that 35 went all the way to Canada.
Wow.
So
there you go.
You may not have known that either, but we talked about it in our Wider Won't Work video.
Yeah.
But definitely, please keep the comments coming. Let us know how we're doing. If you want to see anything, if you have a particular topic you want to talk about, we will be traveling in the future, so we'll put out some travel dates at some point.
Yeah.
And if you see that we're coming to your city and you want us to take a little bike ride with you or go for a ride on the train, hit us up.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
All that, I think we're in a good spot to wrap it up. Please, if you're not subscribed here on YouTube, or if you're listening, if you haven't rated our podcast, please go ahead and do so.
Ratings are a huge help.
Yep. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next Tuesday for Transcendence.
Yeah, I'm saving that dough. Public transit's where it's at. Watch me go.